That is such a great question. Okay. I'm like physically getting excited, so I need to control myself. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Josh Tseng. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about what it's like to live with blindness. So some of you might not be aware, but outside of YouTube being a corny content creator, I'm actually a public speaker and disability advocate. So what I talk a lot about includes topics like what it's like to live with blindness, similar to what I talk about here on YouTube minus the silly, corny challenges and stuff like that. And I also talk a lot about accessible technology and building an inclusive society. And so just last week, as of the time of recording this video, I was actually invited back to my alma mater, Temasek Polytechnic, to give a talk on digital accessibility and inclusivity at the workplace. After my presentation, there was a sort of informal Q&A forum discussion where the students who were attending the online event were able to ask me some questions. And actually, I thought some of the questions were really thoughtful, and I thought it would make a good video. So today, we'll be taking a look at some of the questions that these students asked me and my answers to them. And by the way, before we begin, if you enjoy my content and want to support me on my journey to educate the world about what it's like to live with blindness, subscribe to me, smash that like button. This channel is super new and I have big things coming in the future. So without further ado, let's begin and let's take a look at some of these questions which I thought were really thoughtful and interesting. Hope you enjoy.
What will you tell individuals who have the same disability as you?
So there's a few components to this, okay? When it comes to people with disability, especially people with vision impairment, right? The world wasn't built for people like me. A lot of things are visual. A lot of things are just not built to be accessible for people with vision impairments yet. And maybe even despite best efforts, they never will be, right? Certain things are just not meant to be for blind people. And it can make a lot of people with vision impairments feel very bitter or disenfranchised, and I totally get that, right? But at the same time, to a very large degree, a lot of these things are not within your control, right? But there are many different things that are within your control. So focus on those things, right? Self-advocating again, right? If you don't like the way someone is treating you, or you have a specific need that you really want to be heard, let it be known. Right, a lot of people struggle to understand people with vision impairments because it's so difficult for people to relate. Right, so just be patient and communicate with them. And in terms of moving forward for someone who is vision impaired, I focus on the things that you can do. Obviously, there's not going to be blind archers or blind graphic designers, but there's many other things that you can do. And actually, one of the things I didn't really mention previously, I'm actually doing a lot more advocating online. Okay, so on platforms like the big ones right now for me are LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter, where I talk about what it's like to live with blindness. And my mission statement is I want to show people that there's a lot more that we can achieve than people realize. Because a lot of my life I've been told, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can't play video games because what's the point? You can't cook or else you burn the house down. You can't go out or else you get run over by a car. And honestly, the question should be why not, right? There are many ways to do things. And stay hopeful. And if someone who with a vision impairment is listening to this, I'm rooting for you and know that it's possible.
Okay, so the next question that we have is, what are the career paths or volunteering opportunities that we can take to advocate for greater embracing of PWDs in society with a business diploma?
That is such a great question. Okay, I'm physically getting excited, so I need to control myself. Number one. A lot of people feel like, I'm not saying this is specifically the mindset of the person asking this question, but I'm talking about in a very general sense. When a lot of people think of I would like to volunteer, right? They follow up that statement with, but I don't have anything that a volunteer organization would find useful. And the thing I like to ask them is, how do you know what you have is not useful, right? Because you think about it a different way. Volunteer organizations, charities, social enterprises, non-profit organizations, all these kinds of entities, you think about it a different way, right? They are essentially the same as companies, Just they are not working for profit. They're working for some kind of social good or some kind of mission statement. So every non-profit organization, every charity, every social enterprise is going to need things like marketing, right? Media, branding, communications, administrative tasks, business development even, right? Yes, non-profit organizations also still have to earn money, right? It's just through different means, right? Fundraising, logistics. And basically, if you have a skill set, try to look out for, let's say if you want to do business development, or maybe something even simpler, let's say photography, right? You can go online and you can search, volunteer welfare organizations that need photographers, something like that, right? Or if you see a VWO or a charity that has, photos that maybe could use some updating, because trust me, a lot of them do, reach out to them and say, hey, do you have a position for a volunteer photographer? I have this in mind, right? And essentially what you're doing is you're pitching them your services. And trust me, 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. If I could give you actionable insights, number one, focus on a cause that really calls to you, because if you're going to be doing things on a volunteer basis, at least you want it to be something that you feel strongly about, right? So the second, identify what kind of skills you have. And then third, try to apply what kind of skills you have and what kind of skills you want to offer to the organizations that you see out there and that you're attracted to, and then send them an email and try to start a connection. At the very least, you don't lose anything by asking. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay, so the next question that we have is actually gathered from the survey. So other than the obvious benefits of inclusivity in the workplace, right, and increased productivity and working relationships, are there any other benefits?
Okay, that's a bit of a general statement. Let me try to think. So besides the obvious things like productivity, well, okay, here's a big one that might be a little bit underrated, right? And it sounds a little bit goofy and like duh, but hear me out, right? It feels good, right? It feels good to build an inclusive workplace environment, right? It feels good to be the one initiating that change, creating that positive impact, and it makes everyone around you feel good as well to be a part of it. That is very underrated, because when people feel good at the places that they are working at and for the people that they're working for, not only does it translate into productivity, it translates into many other intangible things, right? Like loyalty, like retention, like retention is not an intangible thing, but retention, loyalty. Even if the people leave, right, they have a good feeling about where they came from, and they are, potentially very valuable assets for things like referring future people to work at that company, right? Because they'll have good things to say. So these are some of the really intangible aspects of it that maybe not a lot of people talk about, but are super important. And I would like to extend upon that. I know that was not the original question, but I would like to extend upon that with what it's like to create inclusive products and accessible products, right? Because as a technology guy, one of the things I talk a lot about is digital technology. If you're not familiar with this acronym, you can look it up. It's WCAG, called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Is that, long story short, anything on the internet that is content that people need to consume, or are products that people need to interact with, the WCAG guidelines help you standardize accessibility for those kinds of things. And to make the long story short, it pays off big time. You can look into it. It's a very good return on investment, because when you open up your product to be usable to everyone, so despite the fact that they may not be able to see, despite the fact that they may not have all their fingers, despite the fact that they maybe have some other motor disability, like they can't move their hands properly, let's say they have shaky hands, if you make your products accessible for all these kinds of people, there's a lot more potential for you to earn. And that return on investment is very interesting to me and very important, because obviously I struggle a lot with platforms and products that are not made to be accessible. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the next questions that we have for you is, what are some ways or programs that school or workplace can implement D&I practices? Because the person who asked this question mentioned he or she is very interested in D&I.
Okay, so this is starting to venture into the territory of D&I management, which I'm not extremely familiar with. in terms of being the manager in that position and initiating that kind of environment. But what I can tell you is like number one, like general things that I'm aware of, and number two, experience based on my experience as a person on the benefiting end of that equation. Okay, so just to be a little bit transparent with that, this is not an area that I'm super familiar with. But I think the first important thing is that not every D&I kind of practice will apply to every company, because every company culture and purpose and the kind of work that they do is going to be very different. So I think identifying that in the first place is going to be quite critical. To use this example again, like you're not going to find a blind person as a designer in a graphics design agency. Maybe they're a consultant for accessibility. Maybe they are a business development person. Could be anything else, but you're not going to find a designer as a blind person. So there's certain obvious things that you will have to eliminate based on the scope of the company. And then the other thing is budget and the company values. Not every company is going to be an MNC that has millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to induct assistive technology into their workflow. So knowing the kind of limitations that you're working with is going to be important, and also what kind of values that the leadership in the company has. Because unless you're the C-suite level or senior manager level kind of executive in the company, there might be certain things that you're constrained by. So that's another one. And then the final thing is that this is me offloading the responsibility of giving the entire list of advice. SG Enable, right, is a government institution specifically set up to connect employers and job seekers who have disabilities. They have grants, they have workshops, they have frameworks that companies can follow no matter what size they are. And so SG Enable will be a very valuable partner in this. And I've actually worked with SG Enable on a certain level, and they are quite good. So yeah, that's sort of the three things that I'll mention.
Okay, maybe one last question from me. So I just want to know, like, do you have any tips or ways for us on like how we can actually help or even support people with PWDs in like even in public or like in school?
Oh yes, that's a good question. Okay, so the number one golden rule when it comes to helping really anyone, but especially people with disabilities, is before you reach out and help them, right, figure out if they need help in the first place. So I don't mean just stand from afar and like watch them, but just ask, right? So remember the entire point about self-advocating and communication and creating a good environment and whatnot. So yeah, that's a really big thing, right? Ask, hey, hi, I'm so and so. Do you need help? You look like you need to go somewhere. Can I assist you? All right. And then the second component to that equation, once that's done, is be okay with them saying no, right? Because not all the time they actually need your help, and it's not because they don't want you. It's not, don't take it personally, but sometimes they just don't need it, right? If you think about it from your point of view, if you're offered help when you don't need it, you're going to say, no, it's okay, right? So it's a very normal thing, and that's okay. So don't feel embarrassed or don't feel, insulted. Like, yeah, understand that there are people like that. And then if they are in the situation where they say, yes, or yeah, I need help, right? If you're not aware of how to help the people with a specific disability, because I don't think we have time to go over every single scenario, ask them, how can I help you? And then they'll probably tell you, right? So to give just one specific example before we go, for people with vision impairments, especially people who are cane users or guide dog users, usually what you want to do is offer your elbow and then they'll hold your elbow. So not the shoulder, not your hand, right? The short answer is that it's a very sort of non-intimate, non-offensive area for people to grab onto. And also, in the event that the person with the vision impairment is not comfortable, they can easily let go. But at the same time, they are able to feel when you're turning or when you're moving. So it's an ideal spot to let them hold on to you. So their free hand, hold on to your elbow. And that's about it. Yep. So hopefully those are good tips for you.
All right, that was a very engaging session with Mr. Joshua. A very big thank you to Mr. Joshua for taking out your busy schedule to be with us today, and we hope that everyone has been able to take away valuable learning points from today's sharings. Before we end off today's dialogue session, one thing